EDGAR CAYCE readings for Revelation 12 to 21. Revelation 12. Yes, we have the Glad Helpers group, as individuals, and the study that has been made by Same on Revelation. In adding to some of those things as have been applied, let each consider how and why that such application would be made by the beloved in a message of the nature and character. First, the body of the Christ represented to the world a channel, a door, a mediation to the Father. Hence this then may become as the study of self in its relationship to the material world, the mental world, the spiritual world. And this is the manner that has been presented as the way through which each individual would make application of same, of the life of the Christ in his or her own experience. In Revelation 12 we find the symbols of the woman, dragon and child. Do these represent the part played by souls in the creation and fall of man? Please explain the reference of these symbols. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Revelation 12 verses 1 to 3. Rather is the reference given to show to the individual entity that from which or through which the soul in the earth has passed in its creation, its activity in the earthly sojourn, see? For as we go on or interpret further we find, the war was in heaven, see? The woman or the mother, earth, the source from which all materiality is to become a conscious thing, and these are brought forth. Now, as is given, ye have reached to that understanding of thy perfection with God, how in materiality ye may attune the attributes of self. Now from what have ye arisen? These are emblems, significant of that as given as the name of Satan, the devil, the dragon or the like, through which man's rebellious forces arise, even though he has attained to the book even itself in his body. And these are the experiences then to be met. What is meant by the symbol of the child in Revelation 12? And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God, and to his throne. That which is the outgrowth of the application of the word, or the book, upon self. For as the child it is born of application of the elements in the body, physical, mental and spiritual, of the individual. What is meant here by the war in heaven between Michael and the devil? And there was war in heaven, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. As has just been given, as is understood by those here, there is first, as is the spiritual concept, the spiritual rebellion, before it takes mental or physical form. This warring is illustrated there by the war between the Lord of the Way and the Lord of Darkness, or the Lord of Rebellion. What is meant by the symbols of the wings of eagle given to the woman for escape, and the time and times and half a time? This is as the entrance into or the flight from materiality into those influences through which the body may rest within itself, as physical, or the mental flight, or that to the astral forces, as about its various changes. It is figurative of the transitions from the various spheres of mental experience, by mind, the spiritual influences, as arise, and are as the use of same. Remember, all of these should be then in accord with that ye have attained to, that the book of life is given thee. What is the book of life? The record of God, of thee, thy soul within and the knowledge of same. Explain the flood as caused by the serpent to destroy the woman, and the help given by the earth. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. The flood is the emotions upon the influences of the body in all of its relationships to the activities in its relationships to others, and destroys the baser forces, aided by the application in the earth, which represents the elements of material manifestations in the experiences of the individual. 4. How hath he given? The children of earth are wiser in their generation than the children of light, or from the very growth of what is the experience of the individual in the earth in its seeking for light. Or as he gave in the parable, for impunity's sake or for custom's sake, or for the help that the influence may bring, he will arise and give. So in the experience of the individual, know that there constantly arises within the sojourn in the life or in an experience in the earth the flood of emotions that make for doubt, fears, tribulation, disturbances, anxieties. For the very same of that as becometh then impunity, the earth aids in the quieting of the influence as is illustrated here. Please explain the symbol of the beast like a leopard with 7 heads and 10 horns. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. As has been described in the Revelation, as to how the influences of the knowledge as gained arise through the various forces and centers of the body. Now we find them visualized by John the Revelator as representing the beast, or by the beast that makes for the fears as given in the minds of many by the representing of same in the forms as given, working as it were upon those very forces that have been aroused by the application in the seeking for the understanding of the book, or of the body, or of the relationship of the individual to the relationships borne by the individual. For it is all as individual, yet is applicable to every force or influence that is in the earth in an individual experience. Explain what is meant by those whose names are not written in the book of life. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Those not written are those who have climbed up some other way, or have only for impunity's sake or only for the momentary conscience's sake, as from the influence about them, acknowledged the way. For as we see later more definitely given, whosoever will may take of the water of life. But as has been given, there are those who from the first, as he that is last to be bound, had the import to do evil. Then those who have followed closely after the flesh, or the indulgences of the emotions of the body alone, without the considerations of others, without other than self's own interest, as is shown by the beast that is loosened, these are they whose names are not written, and these are they who are easily led about by every wind that bloweth, unstable as it were in those as represented in a portion or one of the churches, not hot, not cold, but allowing today, tomorrow, the circumstance of the moment to sway, without purpose, without direction, without the name. For there is only given under heaven that name whereby men may be saved, by their belief, their faith, their trust, their works in him. Hence those who do them not, those who are seen about the individual striving, are not to be by the individual lamented so much as that the individual loses his own way, but rather knowing that God, the merciful Father, the loving Father of the Christ, in his own time, his own way, will bring those necessary influences. Be ye then, as is given, in the same association by the promptings of that ye have gained. Having tasted of the tree of life, the knowledge of God, make thyself and thy calling and thy election sure in that ye faint not when ye see these troubles, these disturbances, that are only of the earthy, that only are the emotions of the desires of self's own show coming to pass in thine experience. Explain the symbol of the second beast with 2 horns, having the power to perform miracles. Revelation 13. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. As has been given by him, the power as attained by the study that has been shown in the first portions is to be applied, or may be applied unworthily, as is shown by the beast with 2 ways, 2 horns. Then here, how hath it been given? 1 Lord, 1 faith, 1 God, 1 baptism, 1 way. Yet in the experiences, as ye watch about you there are constantly shown the influences by the very forces of the beast with the double-mindedness, as showing wonders in the earth, yet they must come even as he hath given, though ye may have done this or that, though ye may have healed the sick, though ye may have cast out demons in my name, I know ye not. For ye have followed rather as the beast of self-aggrandizement, self-indulgence, self-glorification, even as the beast shown here. Do these two beasts, as described in Revelation 13, have relation to the subconscious and conscious minds of man? They work in and through these influences, to be sure, the subconscious forces that become as a portion, and the consciousness that works through the elements, for self or for God. They work through these but not as directing, as being the beast. What is meant by the mark of the beast in the right hand, or forehead? And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads. These are as signs or symbols of this or that grouping, or of the organizations that become as a part of the vows or obligations to those who have joined in with the work of the beast. Hence the warning that if these come to mean more in the experience they stand as that which condemns, rather than that which is the helpful experience. For having the mark of the beast and the mark of the Lamb becomes the difference between the consciousness of the indwelling presence of the Christ and the hoped for yet not seen or known. What is meant by the number of the beast is the number of a man, 666. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Just as has been given, that when it is taken on as being the exercise of the man without reference to or realizing the influence which has brought same, though it may be in an organization, in a group, in any influence that becomes the work of man's hand, then it is the number of a man and is numbered as may be the days of man, but lacks that consciousness of God and God alone directing. For as in each organized work or each association, or each group, it should never be as is said as of any man, but how hath he given God that worketh in and through him. Thus is the mark of the beast effaced from the workings of the hand or the activities of the head, and it becomes not as the name or the number of a man, but the trust alone in God. Explain, here is wisdom mentioned in this connection. That as ye have gained by the analysis or the study of the activity and influence of the Spirit of truth throughout the whole members of thy body, physical, mental and spiritual, and have come to the knowledge of that which has first been given, that there is only one God, one Christ, one faith, one baptism, or as Christ hath given, this is the whole law, to love the Lord thy God with all thy mind, thy body, thy soul, thy neighbor as thyself. This is the whole law. This is wisdom. This is knowledge. Knowing that those things, which have been put on through the activities of the elements within thine own forces of thy body and mind are, but as the stepping stones to the knowledge that no man, no number, no force, is above that knowledge that God is in and through all, and in him ye live and move and have thy being. When this is fully comprehended, fully understood, ye have the working knowledge of God in the earth. Are we correct in interpreting the 144,000 who were sealed as being spiritualized cellular structure of the 12 major divisions of the body? And I looked, and lo, a Lamb stood on the Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written in their foreheads. Correct? And this is as of a man, and the name of same. Are the zodiacal divisions of the body proper, and do they have any relation to this? Only relatively. For this is as we have given again and again in reference to same, for as they have been set as the zodiacal signs, correct. As they have moved in their orb or their sphere about the earth, these have just recently passed and have become, as has been indicated, a very different nature to them. In Revelation 14 do the Harpers as mentioned symbolize the souls or spiritual beings that took part in the early attempts to stop the fall of man, but who have not entered the earth plane. And I heard a voice from heaven, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of a great thunder, and I heard the voice of harpers harping with their harps. These have entered the earth plane, but were those that in the beginning were as the sons of God in the earth plane, and hence are referred to as the first of those redeemed. What is the meaning of the new song of the harpers? And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts, and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. The new experience that comes to each soul. Let's keep it individual, see. The new experience that comes to each soul, as to the assurance of that help when necessary of the saints of the Father. What is meant by the four beasts? And they sung as it were a new song before the throne, and before the four beasts, and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000, which were redeemed from the earth. As given, the four destructive influences that make the greater desire for the carnal forces, that rise as the beasts within self to destroy. Even as man, in his desire to make for companionship, brought those elements within self's own experience. These must be met. Even as the dragon represents the one that separated self so far as to fight with, to destroy with, those that would make of themselves a kingdom of their own. Please explain the symbols of the angels mentioned in Revelation 14. What is meant by the symbols of the sickles and reaping? That those individuals who have and are part of the active force in a material world are to work, to give forth, to give out of their strength, themselves in active service, and not as those that would rest, from the material angle, but as the reapers, as the harvesters, which to the individual mind means labors for a definite purpose and service. What is meant by the mark of the beast in the right hand, or forehead? And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead, or in his hand. These are as signs or symbols of this or that grouping, or of the organizations that become as a part of the vows or obligations to those who have joined in with the work of the beast. Hence the warning that if these come to mean more in the experience they stand as that which condemns, rather than that which is the helpful experience. For having the mark of the beast and the mark of the Lamb becomes the difference between the consciousness of the indwelling presence of the Christ and the hoped for yet not seen or known. Will we be punished by fire and brimstone? The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. That is builded by self, as those emblematical influences are shown through the experiences of the beloved in that builded, that created. For each soul is a portion of creation, and builds that in a portion of its experience that it, through its physical mental, or spiritual mental, has builded for itself. And each entity's heaven or hell must, through some experience, be that which it has builded for itself. Is thy hell one that is filled with fire or brimstone? But no, each and every soul is tried so as by fire, purified, purged, for he, though he were the Son, learned obedience through the things which he suffered. Ye also are known even as ye do, and have done. What is meant by blessed are the dead which are in the Lord from henceforth, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. As referred to or given, the changes that have come and the assurance that has come to each individual who has recognized that the Lamb, or the Christ, or the activities of Jesus becoming the Christ are the assurance of the activity of the Christ in the passage from the material plane to the celestial. For as he preached to those bound even in the shadows of death, loosened that which made it possible for them to become again conscious of the opportunities for reconstructing of themselves in the experiences through which error had come, so blessed then are they who die in the Lord, for the body alone is bound. Where are the dead until Christ comes? Do they go direct to him when they die? And I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Write, Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth, saith the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works do follow them. As visioned by the Beloved, there are those of the saints making intercession always before the throne for those that are passing in and out of the interbetween, even as he, the Christ, is ever in the consciousness of those that are redeemed in him. The passing in, the passing out, is as but the summer, the fall, the spring, the birth into the interim, the birth into the material. What is meant by the angels with the 7 last plagues, in Revelation 15? And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. These are the activities that come to those who have begun and have found and have known the experiences of the activities and influences, as indicated, and even have put on and become a part of, or are still in the active forces in the materiality. These see the pouring out of that which is the meeting of self in individuals yet in the earth, see. That is, the angels are the figures of that influence as of the wrath, that is, then the law, see. And this becomes necessary, for the fulfilling of that, he hath not willed that any soul shall perish, but hath with every ill provided a means, a way. Hence the pouring out, the meeting, and the great work or service that those may render, who have named the name, those who have known the song, those that are one with him. Is the temple or tabernacle of testimony. Revelation 15 verse 5, referring to Akashic records. And after that I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was opened. That is, you may term the Akashic record, or the book of life, or the book of Revelation, that is, of the individual, see. What is meant by the temple filled with smoke, Revelation 15 verse 8. Is the temple the body, and are these final steps in the process of spiritualization of the body? And the temple was filled with smoke from the glory of God, and from his power, and no man was able to enter into the temple, till the 7 plagues of the 7 angels were fulfilled. These are the final steps in the abilities of the individuals for their effective service, or filled with the smoke as the glory of the Father, see. This is the temple of the body, and, as such, where the Lord hath promised to meet those that are faithful and true. What is meant by the 4 beasts? And one of the 4 beasts gave unto the 7 angels 7 golden vials full of the wrath of God, who liveth for ever and ever. As given, the 4 destructive influences that make the greater desire for the carnal forces, that rise as the beasts within self to destroy. Even as man, in his desire to make for companionship, brought those elements within self's own experience. These must be met. Even as the dragon represents the one that separated self so far as to fight with, to destroy with, those that would make of themselves a kingdom of their own. What is meant by the angels with the 7 vials, Revelation 16? And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, Go your ways, and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. This again is that fulfilling of the law. This is as the carrying forth in the earth of those influences that bring the wrath in the active forces, in the experience of the individuals. What is the symbol of the first vial and the pouring of it? And the first went, and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men, which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. These all are as the same, though are represented as the effective activity upon the various conditions that have become a part of the errors in those that have the mark of the beast. Please explain the meaning of some of the symbols in the sounding of the 7 angels. Hail and fire, blood and 1/3 of earth burned. What is the earth in this connection? As has been intimated or given in the first interpretations of what the elements represent, that are apparent or a portion of the first cause, as the earth, air, water and the like. These are then, as has just been given, ever to represent, or be symbolical of the same influences or forces throughout, else we may become confused as to their place. Earth, that as we represent as being in a state of transition, or as earthy. Not necessarily lowly or unduly a condition that would belie development. But as fire is purifying, as hail is the crystallization of the water, the air and the temperaments, so all of these then represent those as figuratives of that as may be purified by the fires of nature, as may be represented by the earth when they are met and conquered and used for the development, as in the hail and the like becoming purifying in their natures for the crystallization and the oneness of the individual's purposes and desires. For to go back just a bit, that we may ever keep what is the purpose of the revelation, was it for the purpose of confusing, of being mysterious? This has been gone over before, to be sure. Rather was it not to present it that each entity, each soul, might find within itself that which answers to that within, that makes the real answer to that, as was before stated, my spirit beareth witness with thy spirit. And until the answer is in accord, in a tune, is there the consciousness of the prompting of the ability in a manifested material world to make same practical. Then as the progress is made, as the understanding comes more and more, never, never, does it make the manifested individual entity other than the more humble, the more meek, the more long-suffering, the more patient. Of this ye may be sure. Then in all of the experiences of the opening of the centers, as are represented, and those vibrations that find expression in the various temperaments of individual souls, these come not as justifications in self, but justification in the Lamb of God. Please explain the meaning of some of the symbols in the sounding of the seven angels. Mountain of fire in sea, sea becomes blood. Again as the body elements that become conflicting one with another, which shows the overcoming within the individual activities of the influences that are constantly warring within. How has it been said? O today there is life and death, good and evil, choose thou. This may be said to be symbolical then of these conflicting forces within the influences that are ever present, or as given by another, the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. These are symbolical then, one interpreting the other. Please explain the meaning of some of the symbols in the sounding of the seven angels. Great star falls from heaven. What are the 1/3 part of the rivers and fountains that it falls upon? The star signifies simply the coming of the influence from without to the influences from within, as is signified by his star have we seen. Then this becomes that as falls upon the third, or that is a third portion of the bodily activities, and as interpreted in the experience of the individual, ye have made so many steps, as it were along the way. Please interpret the fall of Babylon as referred to in the 14th, 17th, and 18th chapters of Revelation. Babylon represented the individual, those periods through which every soul passes in its delving into the varied mysteries that are the experiences of the carnal mental, the spiritual mental forces of the body, and as viewed from that presented, may come to the knowledge only through the cleansing that is shown must come to those that would be saved from the destructions that are given there. Does Babylon symbolize self? Babylon symbolizes self. Does Revelation 18 give some idea in symbols of the effect of the fall of self, selfishness? It does. What did the angel mean when he said, I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her? That which is understood by those that follow in the way of the Lamb, that come to know how man separates himself through the desires to become as the procreator in the beasts, which made the necessity of the shedding of blood for redemption, for it brought sin in the shedding, and only through same may there be the fulfilling, and as given, the heavens and the earth may pass, but his law, his love, his mercy, his grace, endureth for those who will seek to know his will. In Revelation 17, does the woman here symbolize the cause of the fall of spiritual man? Please explain with reference to creation. I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her. It represents rather that which made for the projecting of man into matter through the associations that brought carnal relationships in those very activities. Not as a spiritual, but as a material giving, or bringing spiritual activity in the desire of the individual or soul. Please interpret the fall of Babylon as referred to in the 14th, 17th, and 18th chapters of Revelation. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Babylon represented the individual, those periods through which every soul passes in its delving into the varied mysteries that are the experiences of the carnal mental, the spiritual mental forces of the body, and as viewed from that presented. may come to the knowledge only through the cleansing that is shown must come to those that would be saved from the destructions that are given there. Star from heaven, key to bottomless pit. What are the locusts as described in this sounding? King Apollyon in this connection. As has been given as to how each of these vibratory forces arises from the lower portion, or as has been put in another setting, that which represents in the bodily forces the most uncomely, or that from the depths of the bottomless pit, or from out the presence of God, again has the spirit of man arisen to the glory of the star as in the sun, not sun, but sun, to those glories that become as the natures of the bodily forces, and every influence as comes through the earthly natures becomes lost in that beauty in the sun. Do the 7 heads and mountains have any reference to the spiritual centers of the body? And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. These have reference to the spiritual centers, as has been indicated, and indicate and show in the latter portion of same, as to how these have become purified in the redeeming forces of the Lamb. Does the marriage of the Lamb symbolize the complete spiritualization of the body? Please explain. As there has been given through the whole portion of Revelation, first how the symbols of the activity of the body mentally, spiritually, physically, are affected by influences in the earth, and as to how now the body has been raised to the realizations of the associations with spirit and matter through mind, the builder, and comes now to that as represented by the Lamb, or the mind, spiritual, that has now so raised the body as to become as a new being, or as was given by him, the body is the church or temple, the Christ consciousness is that activity which motivates same within the individual. Explain Revelation 19 verses 9 and 10. To whom is John talking here? Is it Peter? That which is represented by Peter. What did Peter represent? That as had been given, flesh and blood hath not revealed this unto thee, but my Father in heaven. All then who have taken, who do take that which had been given, as the example, as the pattern, as the manner of expression, as the acknowledgement of the activities within self, are in that position, that they have touched, do touch as it were, the knowledge of God, in that his ways, his laws, his love, are not only a part of their individual lives, but are by them manifested in their daily life, their daily conversation, as one to another. Yes, then, to the Peter, in every experience of the body, the mind, the soul. Explain the symbols of the white horse and rider in Revelation 19. Is this the Christ? This is the Christ in that it, as the horse, in the experiences of the awakening is the symbol of the messenger, and this is Christ, Jesus, the messenger. Will we be punished by fire and brimstone? That is builded by self, as those emblematical influences are shown through the experiences of the beloved in that builded, that created. For each soul is a portion of creation, and builds that in a portion of its experience that it, through its physical mental, or spiritual mental, has builded for itself. And each entity's heaven or hell must, through some experience, be that which it has builded for itself. Is thy hell one that is filled with fire or brimstone? But no, each and every soul is tried so as by fire, purified, purged, for he, though he were the Son, learned obedience through the things which he suffered. Ye also are known even as ye do, and have done. Star from heaven, key to bottomless pit. What are the locusts as described in this sounding? King Apollyon in this connection. As has been given as to how each of these vibratory forces arises from the lower portion, or as has been put in another setting, that which represents in the bodily forces the most uncomely, or that from the depths of the bottomless pit, or from out the presence of God, again has the spirit of man arisen to the glory of the star as in the sun, not sun, but sun, to those glories that become as the natures of the bodily forces, and every influence as comes through the earthly natures becomes lost in that beauty in the sun. Explain what is meant by the first and second resurrections. The first is of those who have not tasted death in the sense of the dread of same. The second is of those who have gained the understanding that in him there is no death. What is the meaning of 1,000 years that Satan is bound? Is banished? That, as there are the activities of the 40 and 4,000, in the same manner that the prayer of 10 just should save a city, the deeds, the prayers of the faithful will allow that period when the incarnation of those only that are in the Lord shall rule the earth, and the period is as 1,000 years. Thus is Satan bound, thus is Satan banished from the earth. The desire to do evil is only of him. And when there are, as the symbols, those only whose desire and purpose of their heart is to glorify the Father, these will be those periods when this shall come to pass. Be ye all determined within thy minds, thy hearts, thy purposes, to be of that number. In what form does the Antichrist come, spoken of in Revelation? In the spirit of that opposed to the spirit of truth. The fruits of the Spirit of the Christ are love, joy, obedience, long-suffering, brotherly love, kindness. Against such there is no law. The spirit of hate, the Antichrist, is contention, strife, fault-finding, lovers of self, lovers of praise. Those are the Antichrist, and take possession of groups, masses, and show themselves even in the lives of men. What is meant by a new heaven and a new earth? Former things have passed away, when there is beheld within self that the whole will of the Creator, the Father, the place of abode, the forces within and without, make for the new heaven, the new earth. In Revelation 21, what is the meaning of a new heaven and a new earth? For the heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. When the foundations of the earth are broken up by those very disturbances, can the mind of man comprehend no desire to sin, no purpose, but that the glory of the Son may be manifested in his life? Is this not a new heaven, a new earth? For the former things would have passed away. For as the desires, the purposes, the aims are to bring about the whole change physically, so does it create in the experience of each soul a new vision, a new comprehension. For as has been given, it hath not entered the heart of man to know the glories that have been prepared, that are a part of the experiences of those that love only the Lord and his ways. Please explain 2nd through 4th verse of chapter 21, the New Jerusalem, and no more death. Those then that are come into the new life, the new understanding, the new regeneration, there is then the New Jerusalem. For as has been given, the place is not as a place alone, but as a condition, as an experience of the soul. Jerusalem has figuratively, symbolically, meant the holy place, the holy city, for there, the Ark of the Covenant in the minds, the hearts, the understandings, the comprehensions of those who have put away the earthly desires and become as the new purposes in their experience, become the New Jerusalem, the new undertakings, the new desires. What is meant by the second death in Revelation 21 verse 8? But the fearful, and unbelieving, and the abominable, and murderers, and whoremongers, and sorcerers, and idolaters, and all liars, shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Those that have passed into the understanding and then fall away, become minded of the earthly desires for self-exaltation, know the second death. What is meant by the Holy Jerusalem? Revelation 21 verse 10. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the Holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. As indicated, that purpose, that estate to which there is the attaining of those who through the purifying, as has been indicated in the earlier portion, now come to the holy purpose. As the Holy Jerusalem, the Holy of Holies becomes the dwelling as it were of those. What is meant by the 12 gates? The 12 manners, the 12 ways, the 12 openings, the 12 experiences of the physical to all, and those that have all been purified in purpose for the activities with same. What is the significance of the 12 angels? The 12 purposes as represented by the activities of the openings to the bodily forces for their activities in the experiences of expression in the phases of the activities of the individual. Please explain the 12 names, which represent the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. The same as the 12 gates, the 12 angels, the 12 ways, the 12 understandings, or the approach to Israel, the seeker, all seeking not then as the expression of self, but as one in the Holy One. Revelation 21 verse 15. Please interpret, what is the golden reed to measure the city? And what is the significance of the stones of the New Jerusalem and their colors? The new understanding, the reed to measure the city, the abilities of each. Not unto all is it given to be ministers, not unto all to be interpreters, not unto all to be this or that, but measured according to that whereunto they have purposed in their hearts. Though all are as one, remember it has been given that the purpose of the heart is to know yourself, to be yourself, and yet one with God, even as Jesus, even as is represented in God the Father, Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit, each knowing themselves to be themselves yet one. So the measurements for those that make the vibrations within themselves that become attuned to the new purpose, the new desire, the new hopes, the new revelation, the new understandings to do the will of the Father with the will of that made perfect in the Christ. Revelation 22 verse 1. Please interpret, and he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. As the river, the water, the life represents the active flow of the purpose of the souls of men made pure in same. Then they flow with that purpose from the throne of God itself, made pure in the blood of the Lamb, which is in Jesus, the Christ, to those who seek to know his ways. Revelation 22 verse 2. What is meant by the tree of life, with its 12 kinds of fruit that yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree for the healing of the nations? That is the tree planted by the water of life, that is, as the sturdiness of the purpose of the individual in its sureness in the Christ, and the leaves represent the activities that are as for the healing of all that the individual activities may contact, even in material life. And that it is continuous, as by the month, as for the purpose, as for the activities. Revelation 22 verses 10 and 11. Seal not the sayings of the prophecy, etc. And he that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy be filthy still, etc. As that period approaches when there shall be those influences of the power of those incarnated in the activities of the earth, then the purposes become set, as in that indicated by the activities of each being in that to which they have then given themselves. Just how should this material be presented so as to be the most helpful and readable? Comment on the following. Rather than commenting, for these touch upon the same, we would give this. First, let there be not one, but all who would purpose, who have purposed, to be among that number, that are called of God, to give to those that seek the interpretation, compare and prepare the messages that have been given, and then choose ye, they that would write, and let them, yea, by day and night, find themselves, even as John, moved only by the Spirit of truth. Thus preparing the message. Then when prepared, in one sitting, read the whole to your source of information, and receive the rejections or acceptations. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you all. Amen.